When most people think of intelligent animals in the ocean, they usually imagine dolphins. Maybe whales. Maybe even sharks. But almost nobody thinks about the octopus. And that's strange. Because the octopus may be one of the most intelligent creatures on Earth. Not just in the ocean. On Earth. At first glance. It doesn't look impressive. It has no bones. No protective shell. No powerful jaws. No social groups. No underwater civilization. Most of the time, it spends its life hiding. Tucked between rocks. Coral reefs. Or narrow cracks along the seafloor. If you swam past one in the wild, there's a good chance you wouldn't even notice it. And that's exactly how the octopus likes it. But the more scientists study octopuses, the stranger they become. Every discovery seems to create a new mystery. Every answer raises even more questions. Because almost everything about them breaks the rules. An adult octopus has around 500 million neurons. That's more than almost any other invertebrate on Earth. But here's where things start getting weird. Really weird. Most of those neurons aren't located inside its brain. They're located inside its arms. Think about that for a second. Imagine if your hands could explore the world, solve problems, and react to things around them, without constantly waiting for instructions from your brain. That's surprisingly close to how an octopus works. Each arm contains its own network of neurons, allowing it to process information independently. In a way, an octopus doesn't simply control its arms. It works with them. One arm can investigate a rock. Another can search a nearby crevice. Another can explore for food. All at the same time. It's a completely different way of experiencing the world. A way that feels almost alien. Scientists have watched octopuses open containers, escape aquariums, navigate mazes, solve puzzles, and remember solutions long after encountering them. These aren't simple reflexes. They're not just instincts. They're signs of learning, signs of adaptation, and possibly signs of something much closer to intelligence than we once believed. Which raises a fascinating question. How did a soft-bodied animal, with no bones, no social hierarchy, and no advanced society, become so intelligent? Because when scientists began searching for that answer, they discovered something even stranger. The octopus wasn't just evolving a remarkable brain. It was evolving the ability to disappear. Not by swimming away. Not by hiding. But by transforming itself into the world around it. Almost instantly. And once you understand how it does that, you begin to realize something. The octopus isn't just one of the strangest animals in the ocean. It may be one of the strangest animals evolution has ever created. And that's where the story gets even more incredible. And honestly, if you saw something like this outside your submarine window, would you stay calm? Comment 1 for yes. Comment 0 for absolutely not. For most animals, survival means running. When danger appears, you escape. But an octopus was never built for speed. It has no shell, no armor, no powerful claws, and no real way to fight off large predators. Yet somehow, octopuses have survived for millions of years. Alongside sharks, large fish, and countless ocean hunters. So instead of becoming stronger, they became harder to find. An octopus can change its appearance in less than a second. One moment, it's clearly visible. The next. It's gone. Scientists consider octopus camouflage one of the most advanced forms of disguise in the animal kingdom. Its skin contains thousands of tiny structures called chromatophores. Tiny sacs filled with pigment. By expanding or contracting them, the octopus can instantly change color, creating patterns, shadows, and markings that match its surroundings. But color isn't enough. Predators also recognize shape. So the octopus changes that too. Using structures called papillae. It can make its skin rough like coral, or bumpy like rock. It's not simply hiding. It's transforming. Divers often describe watching an octopus disappear right in front of them. Not because it swam away, but because it became part of the environment. And here's the strangest part. Scientists believe octopuses are colorblind, which means one of the greatest camouflage experts on Earth may not even see color the way we do. So how does it know exactly what to become? That question puzzled researchers for years. And the answer would reveal something even stranger about the octopus. Because camouflage wasn't the most impressive thing evolution gave it. Its intelligence was. Camouflage alone is already impressive. But it isn't what shocked scientists the most. Because eventually, researchers began noticing something unusual. The octopus wasn't just reacting to the world around it. It was learning from it. At first, that doesn't sound extraordinary. Lots of animals can learn. Dogs learn. Birds learn. Even fish can learn simple behaviors. But the octopus seemed to be doing something more. In laboratory experiments, octopuses learned how to open containers to reach food. Some figured out how to unscrew lids. Others learned how to navigate simple puzzles. And once they discovered a solution, they often remembered it. Think about that. This isn't an animal with a backbone. It isn't a mammal. It isn't even remotely related to humans. Yet it was demonstrating behaviors normally associated with much larger-brained animals. Researchers have even documented octopuses escaping aquariums. Not by accident. Not through broken equipment. By finding weaknesses. Some slipped through filtration systems. Others climbed out of tanks entirely. A few even entered neighboring tanks to steal food before returning. That sounds less like instinct, and more like problem solving. But here's where things become truly strange. Most intelligent animals live in groups. Dolphins do. Wolves do. Primates do. Living together creates challenges. Communication. Cooperation. Competition. Many scientists believe those challenges help drive the evolution of intelligence. But octopuses don't live like that. Most spend their lives alone. No families. No social hierarchies. No communities. Yet somehow, they still evolved remarkable intelligence. And that creates a mystery. If social life wasn't responsible for making octopuses smart, then what was? Scientists believe the answer may lie somewhere else. Because millions of years ago, the ancestors of modern octopuses lost something that changed everything. Their shell. And once that protection disappeared, survival suddenly became much more difficult. Which may have forced the octopus to evolve something even more powerful than armor. A better brain. And that single evolutionary decision may have created one of the strangest minds on Earth. But to understand how that happened, we have to go back hundreds of millions of years. Back to a time before dinosaurs. Before mammals. And long before humans ever existed. Imagine discovering that your hands could see light. Your skin could detect movement. Your body could think for itself. At that point, would you even consider yourself human anymore? Comment human if this still feels normal. Comment alien if it doesn't. Today, when you look at an octopus, it's hard to imagine it ever had a shell. Its body is soft, flexible, almost fluid. It can squeeze through gaps barely larger than its eye, hide inside cracks, disappear into places no predator can follow. But that wasn't always the case. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the ancestors of modern octopuses looked very different. Like many mollusks alive today, they carried a shell. That shell acted like armor, protection against predators, a safe place to retreat when danger appeared. For a long time, it worked. Then something unexpected happened. Around 140 million years ago, the ancestors of modern octopuses began losing that shell. At first, that sounds like a terrible evolutionary decision. Imagine voluntarily giving up your armor. In an ocean full of predators, sharks were hunting, large fish were hunting. Everywhere you looked, something wanted to eat you. Losing protection should have been a disaster. And in many ways, it probably was. Countless individuals likely died, generation after generation. But evolution doesn't care about comfort. It only cares about survival. And strangely enough, losing the shell came with an advantage: freedom. Without a heavy shell attached to its body, the octopus could move faster, hide more easily, explore places other animals couldn't reach. Instead of carrying protection everywhere, it could simply disappear into narrow spaces. Think about that. A shark may be larger, stronger, faster. But if the prey suddenly slips into a crack too small to follow, none of that matters. The predator loses. For the first time, survival wasn't about being tougher. It was about being smarter. And that's where scientists think everything changed. Because once the shell disappeared, the octopus needed new ways to stay alive. Camouflage became more important. Problem solving became more important. Decision making became more important. Every mistake could be fatal. Every successful escape increased the chances of passing on genes. Over millions of years, natural selection may have started favoring individuals that could adapt faster, learn faster, think faster. Not because intelligence was the goal, but because intelligence became useful. And eventually, that pressure may have produced one of the most advanced nervous systems in the entire ocean. In a strange way, the octopus became intelligent because it was vulnerable. Its greatest weakness may have forced the evolution of its greatest strength. And if that's true, it means something remarkable. One of the smartest animals on Earth may exist because its ancestors lost the very thing that once kept them safe. But intelligence wasn't the only extraordinary ability that evolved. Because while the octopus was becoming smarter, its body was becoming something else entirely. Something so unusual that even today scientists still struggle to fully understand it. Because the octopus doesn't just think differently than we do. In some ways, it experiences the world differently too. By this point, the octopus already sounds unusual. It can disappear in plain sight. It can solve problems. It can squeeze through spaces that seem impossible. But the deeper scientists looked, the stranger the story became. Because an octopus doesn't experience the world the way we do. When you touch an object, your hand collects information. Then your brain interprets it. Simple. But for an octopus, the process is far more complicated. Or perhaps, far more incredible. Each of its 8 arms is covered with hundreds of suckers. Thousands across the entire body. At first glance, they look like simple tools for grabbing things, holding prey, climbing rocks, exploring the seafloor. And they do all of those things. But that's only part of the story. Because every sucker is packed with sensory receptors. These receptors allow the octopus to detect chemicals in the water. Chemicals left behind by fish, crabs, shellfish, or almost anything else nearby. In other words, an octopus doesn't just touch an object. It tastes it. Imagine reaching out to grab a coffee mug, and instantly knowing what it was made of, where it had been, what touched it recently. That's closer to how an octopus experiences its environment. Its arms are constantly collecting information. Every surface, every movement, every scent carried through the water. And here's where things become even more unusual. Scientists believe some of that information never reaches the central brain at all. Instead, the arms process part of it themselves. Think about that. An arm exploring a crack in the rocks may be making decisions locally, without waiting for instructions, without asking permission. It's one of the strangest nervous systems ever discovered in the animal kingdom. In many ways, an octopus is less like a single brain controlling a body, and more like a network working together. A living system of distributed intelligence. Perhaps that's why octopuses are so curious. Divers often describe encounters where an octopus seems just as interested in the human as the human is in the octopus. They reach out, touch cameras, inspect equipment, examine unfamiliar objects. Not aggressively, not fearfully, just curiously. Almost as if they're trying to understand what they're looking at. And honestly, that's part of what makes them so fascinating. When you watch a shark, you see a predator. When you watch a whale, you see power. But when you watch an octopus, sometimes it feels like you're watching another mind. A completely different kind of intelligence. One that evolved separately from ours. And that's exactly what amazes scientists. Because humans and octopuses split from a common ancestor more than 600 million years ago. Long before mammals existed. Long before dinosaurs. Long before anything resembling modern life appeared on Earth. Yet somehow, both lineages eventually produced intelligent animals. Almost as if evolution invented intelligence twice. And if that can happen here, on one planet, under one set of oceans, then a much bigger question begins to emerge. If intelligence evolved independently in octopuses, how many other forms of intelligence could exist? Not just in Earth's oceans, but anywhere in the universe. And that's why some scientists say the octopus may be the closest thing we have to an alien. Not because it came from another world, but because it shows us that a mind doesn't have to look anything like ours to be extraordinary. For a long time, scientists believed play was something special. Not just special. Rare. You see it in dogs chasing balls, young lions wrestling with each other, dolphins surfing waves, animals spending energy on activities that seem completely unnecessary. And that's exactly what makes play so interesting. Because in nature, energy is valuable. Every movement costs something. Every calorie matters. So why would an animal do something that doesn't help it find food, escape predators, or reproduce? For decades, Many researchers thought complex play behavior was mostly limited to mammals and a few highly intelligent birds. Then they started paying closer attention to octopuses. And suddenly, that idea became much harder to defend. In one experiment, scientists placed octopuses inside tanks with very little stimulation. Nothing dangerous. Nothing stressful. Just a safe environment. Then they introduced a floating bottle. Not food. Not a tool. Just a random object drifting in the water. At first, the octopus approached cautiously. Touching it. Examining it. Testing it with its arms. Exactly what researchers expected. But then something strange happened. One octopus blasted the bottle with a jet of water. The bottle drifted across the tank. Eventually the current carried it back. The octopus did it again. And again. And again. Some repeated the behavior dozens of times. Not because they were hungry. Not because they were threatened. Not because there was a reward. They simply seemed to enjoy it. Think about that. An animal with no social group. No pack. No family structure. Playing. Simply for the sake of playing. The marine equivalent of a child bouncing a ball against a wall. And that's where things started becoming difficult for scientists. Because play is often associated with intelligence. It requires curiosity. Exploration. Experimentation. The willingness to interact with something even when there is no immediate benefit. And octopuses seem to be doing exactly that. Researchers began noticing similar behaviors elsewhere. Some octopuses repeatedly manipulated objects they didn't need. Others explored unfamiliar environments long after finding food. Some appeared fascinated by new items placed in their tanks. Not afraid. Not aggressive. Interested. Almost like they were trying to understand how the world worked. And honestly, that might be one of the most relatable things about them. Because curiosity is something humans understand. The desire to investigate. To experiment. To see what happens. It's one of the foundations of intelligence itself. Yet here it was. Appearing in a creature that evolved completely separately from us. A creature with blue blood. 3 hearts. And a nervous system unlike anything else on Earth. The more scientists studied octopuses, the harder they became to categorize. They weren't behaving like typical invertebrates. In some situations, they behaved more like animals we traditionally consider highly intelligent. And that forced researchers to ask an uncomfortable question. Maybe intelligence doesn't evolve in only one way. Maybe there isn't a single path that leads to a complex mind. Because if a solitary ocean animal can evolve problem-solving, curiosity, play, and advanced learning, without following the same evolutionary route as humans, then perhaps intelligence is far more flexible than we ever imagined. And if that's true, the octopus may represent something much bigger than a fascinating animal. It may represent an entirely different blueprint for intelligence itself. A second experiment created by evolution. And that realization leads to perhaps the most profound question of all. If evolution produced a mind this strange here on Earth, what else might be possible elsewhere? Because the octopus isn't just teaching us about marine life. It's forcing us to rethink what intelligence actually is. When most people think about octopuses, they think about tentacles, blue blood, camouflage, maybe even intelligence. But after everything we've explored, There's one final question. Why does any of this matter? Why spend decades studying a strange animal hidden beneath the ocean? The answer is surprisingly simple. Because the octopus changes how we think about life itself. For a very long time, humans assumed intelligence followed a predictable path. A bigger brain. More social behavior. More communication. Eventually leading towards something similar to ourselves. But the octopus doesn't follow that path. It breaks the pattern completely. Everything about it seems to challenge our expectations. Its nervous system is distributed throughout its body. Its arms can make decisions independently. Its skin can detect light. Its camouflage operates faster than almost any visual system in nature. And despite living a largely solitary life, it developed problem-solving abilities that rival many vertebrates. In other words, the octopus proves that evolution is far more creative than we imagined. There isn't just one blueprint for intelligence. There may be countless possibilities. And that's an exciting idea. Because every time scientists discover something unexpected about octopuses, they also learn something about themselves. About the brain. About consciousness. About learning. About what intelligence really means. The octopus forces us to step outside a human-centered view of the world. To recognize that complex minds may come in forms that look nothing like our own. And perhaps that's why these animals continue to fascinate researchers. Not because they are strange, but because they are familiar in unexpected ways. You can see curiosity in them. Exploration. Problem-solving. Adaptation. Traits we often associate with ourselves. Yet they evolved completely independently. Almost like nature conducted the same experiment twice. And arrived at two very different solutions. One solution eventually built cities. The other hid among coral reefs and ocean caves. But both found ways to understand the world around them. And maybe that's the real story of the octopus. Not a story about an alien creature. Not a story about a sea monster. But a story about possibility. A reminder that life is capable of producing outcomes far stranger. And far more beautiful than we often expect. Because despite all of our technology, all of our science, all of our exploration, the ocean still holds mysteries we haven't even begun to understand. There are species we haven't discovered. Behaviors we haven't observed. Questions we haven't answered. And somewhere beneath the waves, octopuses continue living their lives. Solving problems. Changing colors. Exploring their world. Completely unaware that humans are still trying to figure them out. Perhaps that's what makes them so captivating. The more we learn about them, the more we realize how much remains unknown. And maybe that's true not only for octopuses, but for life itself. Because every answer leads to another question. Every discovery reveals another mystery. And sometimes, the deeper we look, the more fascinating the world becomes. The octopus began as a vulnerable shell-bearing ancestor hundreds of millions of years ago. Today, it stands as one of the most extraordinary animals on Earth. A living reminder that intelligence, adaptation, and complexity can emerge in ways nobody could have predicted. And if evolution was capable of creating something this remarkable in the oceans of Earth, perhaps we should be careful before assuming we've already seen everything nature has to offer. Because history has shown us something important. The greatest discoveries are often waiting in places we haven't looked yet. And the ocean is still mostly unexplored. Which means the next extraordinary story may already be out there. Hidden beneath the waves. Waiting to be discovered.